It is the third model introduced in the Go Nagai collaboration of 2024 with Medarot S, veering away from Mazinger and stepping into the Shin Getter Robo series. It is DYN02 S-Getter, with a mostly new kit of Hull Boost, Break Rush, Wide Beam, Float Legs, and the leg ability of Hull, which buffs the power of AoE type skills by 500, plus an additional approximately 22% of the leg's combined resist stats. Now, as another model of the Go Nagai collaboration, it made it abundantly clear, not just from the trailer but also stepping into the week of his release, that this is going to be a collaboration with Go Nagai as a whole and several of his different franchises instead of just maybe one or two, much like it has been in previous collaborations. All that being said though, and that aside, S-Getter makes it very clear that there is going to be a new king of AoE type attacks and collateral damage, with the kind of kit that it brings to the table, not just to boost the skills, but also make it so even spread load damage can be equally painful no matter how you look at it. Hull Boost on the head's part is a brand new support skill being introduced that upon activation will boost the success and power of AoE type skills, specifically AoE, not scattered, not anything else, specific AoE or explosive type is another way to put it, by 80% upon activation, and the effect unfortunately cannot be stacked on itself. So this means that not only are you much more likely to land a lot of hits and even very high chance of critical hits on top of that, but the power, even spread load across all active parts, will be going up exponentially higher as long as this buff is in effect. Break Rush on the right arm is an AoE type skill that is also a gravity attribute skill, which means that much like, say, Break or Break Hammer, it does have a hand in heavy punish. So the more heavy parts that are on the target, two or more, they'll definitely be feeling the punishment for packing on the weight, whereas one or none, not so much. The main difference with Break Rush, though, is the fact that as an AoE type of attack that will spread the damage across all active parts, it's not really designed to break things on its own. So it's more designed to kind of pepper the foe or prepare them ahead of time, if not for S-Getter himself, but for someone else to kind of come behind him and finish the job. Wide Beam on the left arm, and another new skill that's being introduced by S-Getter, is basically just Beam, which is just times 2 damage at 30% charge, times 3 damage at 100%, but instead of it just being a simple spot target nuking, much like Beam has been in the past, and unfortunately not really good for that reason, Wide Beam takes us a whole new way that actually would make it quite useful depending on how you choose to use it, because it is an AoE type of attack, which, much like Break Rush, means it will damage all active parts on the target upon the attack landing. So instead of focusing the damage toward one particular part, this actually does give Beam, or at least this variant of it, a much more solid use while it's on the field, so that you can actually do something more than just take parts out one at a time. Whereas, much like Break Rush, you can prepare the foe for a much easier nuke down the line, instead of having to take them down one piece at a time. Float Legs means that S-Getter will have really good coverage across all terrains, as A rank across the board, and of course S rank on Cyber. The stats across the board too are actually quite nice. He's pretty healthy and very solid float leg stats as well, meaning this is a model you really don't want to try to miss out on if you can help it. With a head HP of about 4019, right arm also at 4019, left arm at 38, just shy of 3900, and legs at just shy of 5000, relatively solid HP pool as well. With resist stats on the legs at 1481 for both his melee and his shooting resist, it's going to be a very well-rounded leg that can take hits up close and from afar without them breaking him down too quickly. And a very high resist stat as well means he can hold his own very well, and he's going to have some pretty solid damage reduction going for him while he's on the field. A mobility of 898, just shy of 900, is also very nice as well, as this does mean he's already going to have a very solid base speed as well, before any other modifiers such as terrain compatibility or Medarot bonus also does come in to assist him. And an evade of 1253 is really nice as well, as this does mean he will have a pretty fair time dodging or grazing a lot of incoming attacks. His base power is actually not too shabby either, and even though this is kind of to be expected for AoE type parts, Break Rush at just shy of 1300, Wide Beam at almost 2k, the reason why they specialize in having a high base damage is because they're spreading the damage equally across all parts, which means ultimately, say, if you're going to use that base 2k damage on Wide Beam, without any other modifiers, that's really only going to be at like 500 per part if it's a healthy target. Or in the case of them using Conceal or a Shield, where they will sponge the damage all to that part instead. But that ultimately is where S-Getter amps up the game. And it's for these reasons I have to grade him as a pure set score a pretty well-rounded 7.5 out of 10, and some people could probably even argue me into an 8. Primarily because he has Hull Boost and Hull at his disposal to make even AoE type skills immensely painful anytime that both those skills are activated. Hull Boost alone will be bumping the success and power of any skills such as Break Rush or Wide Beam by 80%, very high likelihood of critting, which already is not going to be a problem at almost 1200 for Break Rush, and probably not as accurate, but 865 for Wide Beam, and 80% to their power. And given that we're already at almost 1300 and 2k, that's going to be a very immensely powerful hit. Now, and that's also not touching on the leg ability, which buffs that even higher. That's a solid plus 500 when fully capped at 6 star, of course, and an additional 22% of the leg's combined resist stats on top of that. So as if the base power from Hull Boost wasn't enough, Hull is already going to make it even more painful on top of that. So you're going to be breaking a lot of parts really, really easily for what I like to call total destruction of breaking all parts or even multiple parts at once with an AoE skill, bringing a whole new slew of viability to a lot of these skills brought to the table. And that's not even touching on what they used to be able to do with Silent Leader before. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a hair lower at about a 7 out of 10. Given that Break Rush and Wide Beam by themselves may or may not be super useful, Break Rush we've seen before, Wide Beam is still kind of to be determined how good it's going to be. But pairing either of those or even any other AoE type skill, Hammer, Power Hammer, Missile, Power Missile, or anything else of the like with Hull or even Hull Boost will really start to help you milk some extra mileage out of those type of skills. So even if the damage is going to be spread, it's going to be a very powerful and immensely painful blow no matter which way you look at it.